morning, everyone. Everyone had a good time at the party last night.
I think they were a lot
I'm
louder
not
last
sensing
night.
the energy that maybe there was yesterday. My name is Kim Beinborn, and I work for LinkedIn. I'm a strategic product consultant there, so my main goal is customer success. So I work with a handful of our global accounts, just ensuring they're successful with the products and solutions they've purchased. So what a great job, right? I have a background in talent acquisition as well, so I feel your pain. I've been there. And really excited about our panel discussion today. We're going to be talking about your next hire is right in front of you, leveraging talent networks and internal mobility. So I'd like to introduce the panelists. First we have Rebecca Horton, who is from Australia Post, and she is the head of recruitment there. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thanks.
Ooh, I heard a woo, you got fans. You got fans.
I think the entire Australian contingent at Talent Connect is in this room.
Is in the, well, that is wonderful.
Maybe like 4 people. Should we get them to stand up?
Sure.
No, Australians party far too hard to stand up before lunchtime.
And next we have Sheila Crosby Pena, and she is the Global Career Transitions Lead at Accenture. Woo, thank you, I love it, yes.
Accenture.
Wait, now I'm feeling bad, I didn't get any claps. Just kidding,
No
just kidding.
LinkedIn people in here apparently.
Yeah, right, there's no LinkedIn, they're working everywhere else. And then last, but certainly not least, we have Carolyn Schuster, who is the Director of Corporate Recruitment at Hilton Worldwide.
Yeah.
So, welcome, ladies. We'll go ahead and get started. I thought for context, it would probably be important to understand each of the organizations that our panelists come from, just so you have a little background in case you're not familiar, and then we'll dive into some storytelling around internal mobility and talent networks. So, Rebecca, would you mind telling us a little bit about Australia Post?
Sure. So Australia Post is a tiny organisation by American standards. We've got 37,000 employees, and we look after all the mail and parcel delivery in Australia. So we post to 24 million addresses. And it was just very interesting listening to the scale of some of the organisations that are presented here this week. And what I realised is that despite the fact that it takes us 5 hours to cross the country of Australia, we've got less than 2/3 of the population of just California in that entire country. So it's a really different ball game with the Australians. And I'm looking forward to telling you a bit more about that.
Great, great. And primarily what types of roles does your team recruit for?
Yeah, so we've got a full spectrum.
Okay.
But about 2/3 of our population are classically blue collar or retail.
Mm-hmm.
So we have all the post office shop fronts and all the delivery functions,
Got it.
and then a small corporate centre.
Okay. Do you have a global footprint outside of Australia?
No.
Not yet.
No, the clue is in the name, Australia Post.
It's really fair. It's really fair. Although I will say I have one client, I really can't mention the name, but the first thing they said to me was, we're no longer headquartered in that city, we no longer work with iron, and we no longer build bridges. So I thought, might be time to change your name. But And Sheila, how about Accenture?
So Accenture, some of you have probably seen our billboards in airports, and you might be going, what do they do? Some people think we are in the golf business because we do sponsor a major golf tournament, but what Accenture actually does is we provide management consulting, technology, and outsourcing services to lots and lots of clients, probably some of which are in the room.
Great.
And we do have a global footprint.
And you do. I did know that. Yes, yes. Yeah, thank you. And how about you, Carolyn? Hilton Worldwide. I have to say this quickly because it was funny. Yesterday we were all just meeting face to face for the first time. And I asked everyone where they were staying, not even thinking about it. Carolyn works for Hilton Worldwide. And she says, the Hilton? I said, oh yes, that makes sense. Anyway.
And hopefully some of you all are staying at the hotel as well. So Hilton Worldwide, hospitality industry in 93 countries, now just announcing our last launch of our last brand. We have 12 brands now. And to include our own managed and franchised properties, we have over 300,000 employees and team members.
Great.
And we recruit for the
Yeah,
types
thank
of
you.
positions, operations, sales and marketing, and all types of disciplines within our corporate offices.
Great, great, thank you. So here, just a summary of what we're going to do today is, obviously we've done the introductions. Now we're gonna actually take a few minutes and have each of the panelists talk a little bit about how they are, no worries, how they are leveraging, internal mobility and talent networks today. So they each have a case study that they'll share with you. Some very cool and innovative things that they're all doing, even some award-winning things, which is great. Then we'll talk a little bit about key lessons learned and maybe some, action items that you can take with you when you leave here today and perhaps implement. And then we will save time for Q&A at the end as well. All right. So, Sheila,
All right.
please, take us on your journey.
All right, so we have a number of programs within Accenture to support internal mobility, but what I'm going to talk to you about today is a program that we've been on a journey on for the last couple of years. We realized a couple of years ago that 30% of our employees were telling us that they were leaving Accenture because they couldn't find a position in line with their career aspirations because maybe things had changed for them. And almost 20% of those were high performers. At the same time, we're hiring over 60,000 people globally a year, so we've obviously got a lot of open positions. Our people were telling us that they didn't always know exactly what else they could do at Accenture with their skill set. So we really needed to find a way to help our people figure out what else they could do at Accenture. But it wasn't just a matter of being able to build a tool to help them do that. What we really needed to do was change our culture to one that would inspire, empower, and enable our people to make their next career opportunity be at Accenture. People told us it was easier to leave and find another role than it was to find a role internally, and I know from talking to people the last few days, a lot of you struggle with the same thing. So we really set out on this journey to transform our organization. So we developed something called the Careers Marketplace, and it's this really cool, fun-to-use tool, very innovative, easy to use, and what it does is it enables people to obviously search for internal positions, track the status of any applications if they apply, but it also does a number of other things. There's a lot of information in there to help people prepare for going through a job search. What we found is that our employees, if they were applying for something internally, they weren't always handling the job search as professionally as they would if they were looking externally. So giving them a lot of tips about, updating their CV and things like that and how to, go through the interview process. As well as tools to help them once they've accepted a new position in transitioning out of their old role and into their new role. I've got to stop getting close to that table, in a smooth way. In addition to being able to obviously search, find, apply, and track status, we also have learning recommendations. So if somebody's looking at a particular position, it'll show them recommended learning that they might want to take so it connects to our learning system. It also connects them to other Accenture employees in similar roles, people that are already in their internal network that they can contact and get more information. And then I think probably one of the most important features that's really helping our people is doing a skills comparison. So because we staff our people on client assignments, we're very big on knowing what their skills are, because that's how we figure out where they're going to fit the best. So we have a lot of data about our people's skills, and then of course from our ATS we have information about what kinds of skills the position is looking for, and we're able to do kind of a bar graph match for people on the key skills for the position and show them how closely or not they fit for certain positions. And that's really helped people figure out, oh, I can go do this, I'm a good match on at least 5 of these, and gee, if there's a couple that I'm not, here's some learning recommendations. So it's been a really effective tool. But no tool is going to be the answer without making some other critical changes. So 2 other things that we really focused on were developing a streamlined process I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but what we found when we dove into our data is that internal candidates were taking longer to get through the process than external candidates. It seems totally counterintuitive, but it was reality. So, it's like, well, let's have them also talk to so-and-so and so-and-so. And, 6 or 7 interviews later, this poor internal candidate is like, I already work here, come on. So we have now come up with a global standard 2-step process. And then really the bigger part of the issue was the transition timeline. So we found that hiring managers didn't want to consider internal candidates because it took too long to get them on the job. It's like, oh, let's have a 3 or 4 month transition from their old role to their new role. So we've also set up a streamlined process in terms of transition expectations, and we've based that as close as we can to what the resignation timeline would be in each country. So if it's, typically if somebody leaves our company and they have to give 30 days notice, then we say, okay, then people should be able to transition internally within about 30 days. And that has really helped. And now recruiters as well as hiring managers are seeing internal candidates, as they should, as a priority candidate and somebody they can get on the job quickly. The third piece of the program, which in my mind is probably the most important, is the change management. Because people are our asset, project managers feel great ownership over their people, which is fabulous, but they shouldn't own their people's careers. We own our own careers, and our people need to own their own careers. So the change management approach and strategy that we've developed has really been focused on changing the mindset of different stakeholders. Employees themselves, again, taking more responsibility for their own career, supervisors for realizing they don't own those people's careers, career counselors in helping people figure out what else they can do internally, recruiters seeing internal candidates as a top priority. They'd always been incented with, get more employee referrals, social media, use LinkedIn, all those great ways of getting candidates in. But we've been really trying to push that, hey, our own people should be number one. So anyway, a lot of different stakeholders that we've really needed to work through changing their mindset as well as their behaviors. We're still on that journey. It's going to be, multiple years, but we've made a lot of headway. So really, those are the three work streams that we've focused on. And obviously, as with anything, lots of metrics. And we're still kind of figuring out which ones are the ones long-term that we're really going to want to focus on. So right now, it's kind of analysis paralysis. And we do have an internal transfer satisfaction survey as well that's been really, really helpful as we get ready for really our next part of our journey. So we have now deployed this program to 60 countries. We have 2 left. They happen to be large ones, India and the Philippines. So we will be doing that this year. And then we're going to be adding some functionality in terms of career planning and career pathing. And then we're going back to the geographies where we've already deployed and looking at how can we continue to improve the process and continue to make that culture shift. So that's going to be our big focus for this year. And obviously, input from that internal transfer satisfaction survey is a key input to that.
Great, thanks, Sheila. I saw a lot of head nods when you were talking about when you're
pain.
right when you were talking about sometimes the pain of internal hiring and the process and all the interviews and everything like that. If someone, obviously you've accomplished a lot at Accenture, if someone were to start this journey tomorrow, how would you recommend they get started, or what was the first thing you guys did?
Well, the first thing that we did, we actually tried to start this journey a number of years ago, and it never really completely got off the ground. What changed and what really worked for us is making this not just an HR initiative. We got key business sponsors at the global level, and then as we went, we phased this through the countries. So as we went to each set of countries, we got a business sponsor, somebody influential with our business leaders in that geography to really sponsor this with us. And that's really, I think, what was key. So I think getting that business sponsorship to help drive it forward and not just have it be an HR initiative.
Great, thank you. Carolyn, how about Hilton?
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
so my story, I'll take you through a journey over the past probably 1.5 years now. And you're going to see a lot of similarities to Sheila's, and I'm head nodding over here. So historically, 95 years and continuing to move on, Hilton Worldwide has had a very rich history of internal mobility and development. An example of that, and kind of a nice showcase roadmap model, would be our VP of our newest brand, Curio Collection by Hilton. She started as a front clerk in Austin, Texas. She then moved on and throughout the organization into operations roles, went on a tour of all the brands, ran hotels, was GM at many hotels, as well as held corporate positions within HR as one of them as well, and now is leading our newest brand. So that's kind of a very nice solid roadmap that if we could replicate that if we could put that and formalize it, and that's really what we would love to continue seeing. So many of our senior leaders have been with the organization for over 20 years, and that's why we want to be able to formally develop a program for the rest of us, because what about the rest? You know, today, we do have a process in place, a very traditional process. We do give our internal team members screening preference based upon once they've met the basic qualifications of a role, but to Sheila's point too, sometimes their process is a little bit longer than our external team members. But typically on average, we're filling about 30 to 35% of our open positions with internal team members already today, and of that population, the director level and above positions are filled on average about 60% internal. So without having a formalized program in place, we're not doing too bad, so we are making some movement. But as we recently surveyed our team members, one of the main things that came out from that survey was that one of the things that was important to them in their experience with Hilton Worldwide was career development. So knowing this, knowing that we're growing an additional, I think, 1,200 hotels within the next, coming years, and knowing that there's constant, still talent wars, especially in hospitality, well, in all the industries, but of course it's true to my day life today, are the talent wars. So what are we going to do about that? So we reviewed our current process, realized it was pretty cumbersome, and realized there were some barriers. And some of those barriers were policies, which then speaks to Sheila's point about the change management and getting the business partners involved and getting them understanding the importance and relevancy of internal mobility and how important it is for us to sustain our company and our properties and being able to grow. So we knew that we needed to do something. We're growing, we have talent wars, people wanted to be developed. And so we are tearing about our process. We are thinking to ourselves, well, so we know that this process is cumbersome. We know that our external candidates have a better search experience than our internal team members do. And same thing as Sheila, that we are notoriously being told that it's easier to find a job paying 10 cents more an hour or get promoted into that next level of career into another company than it is your own. So, okay, so we sat down and thought about, okay, what does this mean to us and what are we going to do? We know that over 93 countries, different languages, different levels of positions that we're filling, we need something very accessible, and that was one of the biggest complaints. Many people don't have a Hilton email address, don't have the common denominator employee ID. How do you log in? How do you streamline that process? So it's important for us to keep all those factors in consideration, not just concentrating on, a single population, but how do we make this global? So we concentrated in 3 areas. One was the talent community, building a talent community, building our internal career website, as well as career paths. Very similar story. So where we are today and where our future holds the next few months for us, we have launched successfully our Hilton Talent Network, which will then build our community. We will be launching over the next few weeks our internal career website, where upon entry, our team members will be invited to join the Talent Network. And at that point, they become what they've never had the experience of before, is really become searchable to our own internal recruiters. We have visibility now to their skills, their profiles, and their titles, so we can better match opportunities, even proactively searching and just sharing job opportunities that are relevant to that person, to their location or title or preference, their profile, and then sharing with them about career news and events, as well as, in the future, we'll be putting some marketing materials about career development tips and tricks of how to, different things and pathways into your career. But so that's launching in the next month or two. So they'll be asked to join the network. So one, they're already gaining that searchable access to the recruiters where we haven't been before. Number two is that we will be, they'll enter into the site. They'll be welcomed by our president, Chris Nassetta. He recorded a video for this purpose, for the site, welcoming the team members, which is a phenomenal video. And now they'll have the ability to search for jobs as country detected. You'll be able to visit all the different brands, learn about all the different brands, and learn about all the current openings that are posted internally to our team members where they've never had that experience before. Phase 2 or 3, 2 will be able to actually feature jobs based upon your profile and title and location. And when you log in, you'll have the featured jobs available for you to look at. But then also the portal to get to career pathing. So starting in the operations roles, because that's where the majority of our team members sit, are in the operations roles, understanding, okay, not only development and learning tools to help them develop in their career, but then also just understanding what positions are out there. Many people don't realize what makes up a property, what makes up a department, et cetera. So understanding what opportunities available are out there and, what makes a successful career path within Hilton. And then, we really are going to be taking to the same point as looking at, okay, we've got this, we're launching this, we're launching it worldwide. We're not going to phase it in, we're just going to launch it to everyone. And knowing now that this site is accessible, via your mobile, it's detected on any device coming in, it's responsive. It'll help that, making it easy, accessible. We're really excited about that. So the third thing as I want to call out is the fact that we've really partnered with our vendor here, LinkedIn, and helped us understand the value and just the ability to leverage our team members that are already have LinkedIn profiles and what to do with those. So we're offering opportunities to post on their individual pages openings within Hilton Worldwide too. So there's a second pass of awareness of openings. And then also really becoming brand ambassadors. We've noticed phenomenal results in terms of our engagement with LinkedIn as well as our increased profiles and joining our network. So it's been a great trip, and honestly, so we've done this in the past year. We have a long ways to go. I've already learned a couple of ideas sitting here with Sheila, and I look forward to learning more. But so we're going to come across those issues in terms of change management. People wanting to, maybe not work, within the system, but work outside. But we'll address that and deal with it. But this is the first time, we became global 5 years ago. And, this is really the first time that we have really taken the time out to say, let's think about our team members first and make sure that they're taken care of.
Thanks, Carolyn. Two things. One, I did not set her up for the LinkedIn plug.
Not at all.
But thank you for that. No. But the other thing is, when we were talking the other day, I know you mentioned, I think, a unique challenge to you that perhaps some other companies are facing around just access to technology and internet access around the world. And I think that is, sometimes maybe we take for granted, right, that everyone has that. Will you talk a little bit about how you're addressing that challenge?
Well, we are working to address that, yes. Yeah. It has become an obstacle, especially in the third world countries. So where either they have limited internet bandwidth, their computers aren't, and they don't have the internet speed that we would here that we're used to. 4G is not anything that anyone knows about in the Asia Pac market. In Turkey and in the smaller countries out there, they go to their local, restaurant or venue or career fair to recruit for. So technology, although they don't have the ability to maybe really apply online and go through the system from a computer or device, we're putting up check-in, very similar to check-in, but we have our own system where we can actually go on site at career fairs and they actually can become a part of our network on site there, as well as being able to apply for any positions that might be of interest to you. But we're continuing to still have issues, and just even continuing to deal with other job boards across the different countries. Some job boards own the market. They don't want to integrate. They don't want to, be a fun player. But I would say that 9 out of 10 calls that I'm on during the week is about our challenges, about how do we really capture these markets. And some properties may not even see the advantage of it. Long term they will, but that's the change management that you have to get your business partners involved in understanding. Rather than taking paper and keeping all your applications at that property, it will benefit you in the future when you have that next opening or a property next door to you, that you'll be able to go into this network, this Hilton Talent Network, and actually proactively pull candidates and welcome them to apply for positions as well.
Great, thank you. And Rebecca, we'd love to hear about your Australian Post journey.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, well, there's so many similarities and yet quite a few important differences. I know when I first joined Australia Post, and I was an investment banking headhunter, so I'd come into this blue-collar organisation that was all about logistics and loads of guys walking around with, hobnail boots and high-vis jackets and loads of tattoos, and that was all a bit different for me. One of the first stories I heard about recruitment was the story about this postal delivery officer who was looking to move from one state to another state. And he was told by his manager, and then he asked around and he was told by his HR business partner that the fastest way to get another job in another state was to quit your job and reapply. And I thought that was awful, and I was sure it was going to be the only time I ever heard that story. I heard that story 3 times in 3 months, about 3 different people. So pretty much from the very first week that I joined, just up to 3 years ago, I've been really determined to fix stories like that and make sure that those things don't happen. We were faced with 2 very different things at Australia Post. On the one hand, we're going through this huge transformation in our traditional business where we're really downsizing the letters business because everybody has iPhones and nobody writes letters. So we've really got to do something about that. On the reverse side, we're one of the biggest parcel delivery organisations in the country, and that business is going great guns thanks to eBay and online shopping. So we've got this huge boom and bust economy going on within this one organisation. Our engagement scores are telling us that our career development opportunities are rubbish. We were getting like 52% instead of 78s and 85s. And at the same time, we knew that we were going to be changing the jobs of our people really dramatically over the coming years. And we had no solid infrastructure to do that. And if we were going to divest some of our workforce and put them out into the Australian labour market, we really didn't even know if they could get another job. We didn't know whether they had it in them, and we didn't know whether they were a match to the outside market at all. So facing into those 2 very different challenges, a talent challenge and a reductive challenge, was quite concerning. But happily, a careers infrastructure is the solution for both of those things. So probably one of the things I'd say when you're listening to my fabulous colleagues talking about their stories, career infrastructures, they really work for all strategies. So whether you're attracting people, whether you're retaining people, or whether you're going to have to let some people go, a career infrastructure is actually a really worthwhile investment. So I'll tell you a little bit about how we built ours. A little bit like Carolyn, we've got an organisation where only 1/3 of our population have an email address at work. I couldn't tell you how many of them have a smartphone at home. Given that most of them are below the average income, they're blue-collar workers, they're typically about 55 years old, they've been with the company more than 20 years, and on average, their education level is high school. So these are not highly employable, highly sophisticated job seekers. These are people who genuinely believe that they would have a job for life with Australia Post. And the fact is, that's not going to be true for many of them in the coming years. So we've got a really massive duty of care. One of the things that we did actually to deal with our access to computers was to roll out about 200 PCs that we've set up in kiosks, which is actually much more cost effective than you'd think. I mean, desktops these days don't cost anything really, right? But to roll out just 200 of those nationally has made an enormous difference. We've probably got 20% more access going through our infrastructure just because of that one lever that we've pulled to bring computer access to people's workplaces where they might not have had them otherwise. So I'll tell you a little bit about Post People First. It's based on 3 streams. So one is really the jobs stream, which is about giving people visibility of all the jobs that we've got across the Post group. Historically, we hadn't done that. There was a theory going that you wouldn't apply for a job at the same level as yourself, so they didn't advertise any of the entry-level jobs at all. Now, given that 80% of our population works at the entry level, it just meant that you couldn't have any lifestyle transfers, any change of hours, change of state. It was just really old-fashioned. So that was a quick and easy fix, to be honest. And we went a little bit further because we started to say, okay, well, that's easy. We'll build an internal recruitment function. And we were so confident of our results because of these terrible career development scores and the level of mobility that we knew our workforce wanted, that I actually cut my recruitment team in half and turned half of them into internal recruiters and left half of them as external recruiters. It was really risky, could have gone horribly wrong, but it didn't. We now recruit 1/3 of the jobs that we used to recruit directly because of the intervention of this internal careers facility. So as you can imagine, we're saving an absolute fortune. The second question that happened reasonably quickly, and we've done this quite in an iterative fashion, has been the question of skills. So again, thinking about the workforce that we're working with, we really had these kind of two questions. What happens if the individual doesn't have the qualifications they need to get the job that they want? You know, what happens if they need a certain certificate or a diploma level and they don't have it? Are we going to invest in it to make sure that they can stay with us or grow into the next role in their career path? We took that question to our CEO and he said, absolutely, we will invest in that. So we've been very lucky and we have got some cash. So that's, again, I'd say a big learning is this is not necessarily going to be done for free, but you can do it reasonably cheaply. So the next sets of skills that we put in were obviously the job seeker skills. So writing a good CV, practicing your interviews, which I'm sure everybody would think of. And that kind of got us to the next level of thinking, which was a lot of our population didn't even know what job they wanted, didn't even know what they had to offer. You know, they'd been with us for so long, and in America, just like in Australia, there is only one company that employs a postie. It's us. So if you've been a postie for 25 years, you would assume that you couldn't get another job anywhere else until you get some help to unpick what your job's actually about and really start to learn about what you've got to offer and what your skills are and how those skills, when you break them down, could actually match a whole load of different jobs. So our job became helping them have that unpicking conversation. And again, I took another 5 people out of my recruiting infrastructure and moved them into a career coaching role where their job is to give advice to people to help them understand what they've got to offer and help them identify what kind of career paths could be suitable for them. And that's been working really, really well. So I'd like to share, it's only a year old, so we only got endorsement from our CEO 12 months ago. The first area where I'm pretty happy, 2 in 3 jobs are being filled by post people now. So we'd always assumed around 40-45% would be a really good benchmark. In fact, my research says that it is a global best practice benchmark. But as Carolyn has shown, you can do a lot better than that if you really want to. So we're sitting at the 68 and 72% mark over the last quarter, and that's only 12 months in. So that is going to get better. The more awareness, the more access, and the more uptake our people get involved in, and the more we engage our managers to really support people to get on board with this program. The skills side of things, we've had a really terrific uptake. So we've got a very basic skills catalogue that we're growing every day based on the feedback of our people, and we're accessing, it is mostly stuff that we've found for free, that we're finding from free providers or government-granted access, and we've set up an online environment that's open 24/7. And one of the things that we quite like about it, because it's not really costing us anything, we're really comfortable to offer this to the family and friends of our employees as well. So we're getting mums, dads, sisters, partners, kids, taking up skills and qualifications that we can provide for free, and it's really bringing our whole families along on the journey. And I hope it's actually really making whole families more employable, which is part of our longer term mission. The last piece really is the careers piece. So this is Patrick Burns. These are the guys that I work with all the time, okay? And Patrick is a really cool dude, and it's such a privilege for me to be able to work with somebody who, unlike the investment bankers that I worked with for 15 years of my career, who, frankly, there's not a lot that they don't think they deserve. Patrick, you've got some investment bankers over here, haven't I? Patrick has never had anything like this before, never had this level of investment, never had this level of access to somebody who can give him the support that he needs to work out what he's going to do next. And we're really beginning to transcend just working for Patrick now. We've actually engaged his boss, and now his boss is able to use the resources that we're building, and we're building them every day. You know, we're kind of making this up as we go along. Don't quote me on that, but a little bit we are. And because we're building it every day, we're able to offer better resources to managers so they can be better managers. We're not going to take away their responsibility for developing the careers of their people, but we're actually helping them build their capability to do that better, as well as supplementing their efforts with a direct careers experience. So that's all going really, really well. So we're saving lots of money on recruitment, almost all our money, actually. We are definitely retaining our staff better. Our engagement scores have gone up 2 points in the 12 months that we've been live, and we actually only launched the careers stream 3 months ago. So I'm very confident that this is going to have a direct impact on our engagement bottom line. And I think the really important piece is probably the last part of the strategy, which my PowerPoint slides are really amazing. They are amazing, yeah. What you can't see there. We've worked through with our workforce planning team what are the jobs within Australia Post that we're going to continue to invest in. So we're not going to invest in every single job at Australia Post. We're going to invest in the 4 or 5 that we know we're going to sustain into the future, and we know it's not too big a jump from where our workforce is right now to where they want to be. So we know we can invest in bridging that gap. We've actually taken that one step further because we know that we're going to be changing large parts of the organisation and laying off large numbers of people. We've gone the next step and we've said, okay, so where are the areas in the Australian labour market where we have shortages, where there is a war for talent? And of all of those areas, which are the ones that are not too far a reach for our people? If we get them on a program, invest in them now, get them qualified, and partner with the organisations that are desperate for these staff, we can pretty much walk them into a job when the time comes. And that's the game changer for us, is thinking about how can we do that, not just within our organisation, but actually within the Australian market.
Great.
So that's our strategy.
Thank you. One thing I've decided I'm going to work rubbish into my my repertoire.
Rubbish?
I enjoy it. I don't have the wonderful accent you do, but it's a great word. But secondly, I'm just curious. Obviously, Patrick looks happy, right, in this photo. But I'm curious about the rest of the population. Were you met with any resistance to this change? And, you know, obviously, it's been a big change. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, we're probably 2 areas. I think the first area, and again, an echo of what you guys have come up against, was the sense that managers own their people. This is my talent, it's my team. I'll let you go when I feel like letting you go. And the natural human instinct to hold on to your best people and get rid of your worst people, which when you're thinking about internal mobility is an absolute killer. If you let that happen as HR professionals, then your program can't get off the ground. It will destroy itself. So one of the things that we really focused on was getting under the hood of the managers and really trying to help them. You know, you've probably heard it. They complain a lot. I have to spend so much time in my one-on-ones. I've got these career conversations I have to do. I have to develop my staff. And I'm like, oh, boo-hoo, don't be a manager then. But I think what Post People First does is gives them an entire infrastructure that they can lean on to stop complaining quite as much. That's been very, very helpful. Probably the other biggest area is back to this sort of two-tone economy that we've got going on, which is the areas that are very much into retaining their staff and acquiring more staff. They're terrified of the idea of telling their people that there's other jobs outside Post. You know, they think that's the dumbest idea they've ever heard. And you know, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to go actively marketing into some of our growth areas. You know, there's a wonderful job over at one of our competitors. But the fact is, they already know it. You know, they are very cluey people. They're perfectly aware who our competitors are. They drive around on the streets with them all day. And we've got one big truck and they've got another big truck. They know who's out there. And if they're going to go and look for a job, they're going to go and look for a job. Our job is to retain the people that we need to retain. So for me, again, this careers infrastructure that is agnostic of employer, trying to get people over the idea, and we heard about it with the PepsiCo lady a couple of days ago. we're quite wrong if we think that we own talent. We're quite wrong if we think that we're only going to invest in talent for the purpose of our organisational strategy. The only time that we genuinely get it right is if we invest so smartly that that talent stays, strives, or leaves and comes back, or leaves and tells other people to come to us. That's when you know you've got that whole system working perfectly, because it is holistic. And I think when you really start to nail that, you start to retain the people that you want to retain, because they're proud of the organisation. They know their career is going to go places. They know that you're investing in them. And you're even going to retain the brilliant reputation or corporate brand that you aspire when you are going through a divestment period, because these people are going to walk away saying that Australia Post did the best thing that we could have done for them. And more than that, our customers, other employers, and the joy of being Australia Post is everyone in Australia is a customer guaranteed. Our customers will fill their jobs because we helped them. So we've gone beyond the partnership of just delivering their mail and their parcels, and we're actually starting to deliver on their talent needs, which helps the entire economy. So you can't fail with this strategy. It wins on every level.
And the employees, how receptive were they to the change, to the online learning, to things like that? I'm curious.
Enormously,
Yeah.
actually. I
Yeah,
mean,
great.
the kiosks really help, because I think it's one thing to say, get online, and then people go, well, what if I can't? So I think you've got to give a little, but you actually don't have to give a lot. These days, a lot of people are on a mobile of some, on a smartphone of some description. If they're not, there's someone within their close family circle who has got access of some description. We haven't gone out there with, yet, I do intend to, but we haven't gone out there with a technology platform. We haven't gone out there and systematised this. This is still really basic stuff. We've put a website page on our consumer website with basic careers information, and all you have to do is type in the Post People First bit, and it'll bring you into this space. Again, completely hackable from the outside, but we designed it that way because we want people to be able to sit at home with their partners and talk about what career decisions they should be making next and accessing the right skills to get them there. So for us, we kept it really basic and really simple, really quite cost effective. And really didn't worry too much about the access piece, but we definitely reached out a little bit to tell people that we recognised the access was an issue and that we were prepared to meet them halfway.
Great. Really inspiring results so far too, just a year in. So thank you for sharing that. Sheila, you mentioned earlier that one of the learnings, right, was to get business sponsorship. Just curious if there are any other key findings or results that you could share with us about your journey.
Sure. So I think the other key lessons that we've learned at this point in our journey, we're still in the journey, obviously, is, and because, again, we were, phasing this in globally, a set of countries at a time, is to involve the local teams in the entire journey, literally from the beginning. And it was really a partnership as we went through this. So we had our global sort of core team, and then we had a local team. We have local teams now, obviously, that we're working with, and really being partners in that journey. But in a way, having them feel this is their journey and we're here to support them rather than global's here and you've got to do it. So it's just been a different way of deploying it than I've done in the past with global deployments of things. So I found that it's really worked well. And then I think the other thing is, and I think I pretty much already mentioned this, is just realizing that no technology solution is going to be the be-all, end-all without the other changes behind the scenes.
Yeah, great.
And in terms of results, again, we're only partway through the journey, but before we started this a couple of years ago, we were only at about 4% of all of our open positions being filled with internal candidates, which was abysmal. 4%. Now, some geographies, like the United States, were running in the 20 to 30% range, but a lot of our growth markets were extremely low to zero. Part of that, I think, was some reporting discrepancies that we've gotten better at, but we're now running, more around 10%. Our goal is to get to 16%, but to be honest, I don't really know what the right number is. A certain amount of attrition, obviously, is healthy, but we'd like to get more in that 16 to 20% range over the next couple of years.
Great, thank you. And Carolyn, I know you mentioned, obviously, you're very early on, still in your journey, but any key findings or lessons learned so far?
I think just, it's not as simple as it sounds. We may make it sound real simple, but honestly, like you will come across a lot of obstacles. And just knowing this, but taking it in steps and really understanding, what is the end result and what's being asked for, what is our goal, and backing into that. And just in making sure through thoughtful conversations, meeting with business leaders and senior leadership, and getting feedback from our team members, I think is critical because, we can put up as many tools and resources as we want to, but if they're not in line or relevant, then they won't be used. So I think it's trying to think through all those dynamics of, okay, what has the last 95 years looked like at Hilton Worldwide? What do we want it to look like? What do we want to do for our team members? But breaking it down and just being real thoughtful in your approach and think ahead of, okay, why won't this work for this country? Or why won't this work for this one department? And talking about those obstacles so you're armed and prepared and building accordingly. And just a little bit of a result, we did the soft launch for the Hilton Talent Network. We've actually put that up on our external site to invite individuals if they'd like to join our network. Out of the 220,000 individuals that are in that network today, about 14,000 are team members before we even have launched our final product. So we're real excited about that.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you all, certainly for your inspiring stories, all very different journeys, and but yet obviously a lot of similarities as well. So now we do have almost between 10 and 15 minutes left for any Q&A. If anyone has any questions, looks like they have some microphones set up for us. Sure.
Hi, I'm Melissa from Macy's.com. One of you mentioned that policies were a barrier. I think that was you. Did you eliminate supervisor approval for people to interview for other jobs? Because I think we're caught in the middle of that right now. Do we continue to require the supervisor to bless the candidate, or is it really a conversation between HR and the individual?
Yeah, I might regret my answer at the end of this, but that's okay. We're all friends. So the policy, it's a rule about how long you have to be in your position before you can move into other positions. We are definitely having some obstacles already in breaking that wall down, that policy down. So we're going to start small there. We have a small group of the organization, well, not small, but 1,000 plus of team members in this group that it would be relevant to. We're going to knock that wall down and show and prove to the other business partners that it actually helped us more proactively, it had a positive impact on it for us versus negative, because everyone's concerned like, oh, I've been here for a day and I'm going to take that, I'm going to apply for another job. That's not going to happen, but we're going to put some processes in place, through the interviewing process, reference process internally, to help, really understand and being able to say, this job is right for this person. Maybe the person's in the wrong role today. Sometimes we hire people and they're hired into the wrong role. And maybe it's better we don't wait that 6 months or 12 months. Let's go ahead and, just kind of knock that wall down. So, and then in regards to the supervisory approval and things of that nature, I think both have alluded to the fact that, hiring managers want to hang on, they're not going to give their approval. I would say that in different markets, that is still, that process is different. In some of our markets, it's HR that gives approval as long as someone's not on a PIP and they've met that minimum requirements. In some markets, the supervisor approves it. So I think that, and I don't know that we'll ever come to a point to where it's consistent across the board, because some cultures in some regions just behave differently, and that's okay. We just need to know what we're going to deal with and how we're going to do that. But that's a big learning too, and a huge area to uncover is helping those hiring managers understand how that we don't own their career, right? And so they can't hold on to their team members for the rest of their lives. Yeah.
And just to add on to that, we did change our policy, and it was not an easy sell. But one of the things we were able to do, and this might help, is because we did this geographically, we started out with North America and Latin America. We were able to show that once we eliminated the approval to apply or to go into the process, everybody was freaking out. Everybody's going to leave, fill in the blank, my team, my country, whatever it happened to be. I always would joke with them and say, well, what's wrong with your team that everybody wants to leave? But we were actually able to show after the deployment of those first 2 geographies that were very different geographies, right, that there wasn't this huge outflux.
And that's what
And the
works.
groups that thought everybody's going to want to leave this and go to management consulting, that just wasn't happening. It's like they still have to go through the interview process and they have to be qualified. It isn't like they could just transfer. So getting them over that fear by being able to show data has helped us as we've gotten to geographies that have been more challenging in terms of that policy.
Great, go ahead.
Hi, Marcy Martin with NRG Energy. We're wrestling with this too and thinking about developing sort of a social interactive network that sponsors content and encourages hiring managers to have some skin in the game and have, virtual career fairs and things all in sort of a social interactive platform. So I'm very interested to know, especially more for Sheila and Carolyn, what technology you used. Did it require a massive financial investment? Is it linked to your ATS? What is the guts of what you've developed?
I'll let you take that first.
Okay. So being a technology company, we obviously have, a pretty robust internal CIO organization. So they built this for us. It does pull from our ATS system. It also links to our learning and to our scheduling systems to pull the information that we need that I described earlier. It was a decently healthy investment, but by showing what we would save in recruitment costs and there's the cost of attrition, it was a pretty easy sell once we were able to break down those numbers and say, if we do what we're planning to do over the next 3 years, we will save the company millions and millions of dollars. So it was pretty easy to get, a $1.5 million investment out of them. It's a homegrown system, yeah.
Our approach, we are working with a vendor and using their platform. It is not integrated directly into our ATS. We are still, again, I go back to our 95-year-old company, and I think we have such broken integrations and nothing talks to anything. So, but what we've done is we have worked with a vendor and outsourced, and it wasn't probably that much, but it was a chunk of money. But again, I think that we were able to, same thing, is understand and realize the investment in the ROI that it will deliver. But honestly, it's not real hard if it's not directly integrated with your ATS, because what you can do is always then, from a process standpoint, this vendor also hosts our positions on our site. So we're actually able to route them back in to apply them formally on our applicant tracking system. And I'm happy to, chat afterwards if you want more detail about kind of that journey. Not an easy one. Nothing is easy, especially technology, but job feeds and that nature. But so we route them back in. But we have it set up to where we can report off each and we can see the commonalities as well.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth from AppNexus. Thanks so much. I was wondering if you could elaborate on the communication and initial rollout of these programs to your workforce.
Well, I might.
Yeah. Oh, that was your question? Yeah, do you want to take that one, Rebecca?
Well, so for us, the annual report that's just come out has got Post People First on the front page. And given that it's only a 1-year-old program, you wouldn't necessarily say that the results have deserved that position. They can't, right? You're too young. So comms has been absolutely critical to us. So we've had a very, very heavy CEO-led program communications. We've made sure that all of our spokespeople, so all of our C-suite, include Post People First in all of their people communications and any of their people-related external communications as well. Now, we didn't ask permission for that, we just got really fierce about it. And that's been incredibly powerful. We, again, quite fiercely decided that we were going to go and have 2 pages in our organisational magazine that goes out once a month. And the organisation agreed that would be okay. So you never get a 2-page spread in this thing. So we get a 2-page spread every month, and that's a positioning piece. So it just means that people really know who we are. We're beginning to go out with every single payslip, so the online payslips. And it's just a really, again, quite a simple but very sort of very deep marketing. It's a marketing campaign, fundamentally. That's really what it is. The area that I think we're probably behind a little bit is our communications to our middle management and some of our frontline managers. So that's the next wave of communications and road shows that we're going to go on. We're going to make sure that we attend every single executive's roadshow so that we're present with all of their senior leadership teams and then all of theirs as well. So we will have a physical presence. So this will take up 40% of my life in the next 12 months, is just literally going and saying the same thing again and again and again. Yes, till I die. Yes.
Yeah, and we did a very robust communication strategy, and it's, again, kind of a mix of global and local, so we really created global templates that the geographies could use, whether it's postcards or posters, mailers. We have, things at the global level in terms of our internal employee portal that every once in a while our story, is the featured story. But we really left it up to the countries to decide what vehicles they wanted to use to communicate to their people. But again, because we had those business sponsors in the countries as well, we had them cascade messages to their teams, so the supervisors and the hiring managers, and that was really helpful, whereas HR did a lot of the cascading to more of our employee base. So having really kind of that two-pronged attack has really helped. But now let's continue to keep the awareness going, because obviously unless you're thinking about making a career change, it's not going to be top of mind for you. So we need to keep it going, and that's going to be a big focus this year as well.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I think comms are absolutely critical.
Absolutely.
To be honest, it's almost like, people say if you build it, they will come. Actually, if you tell them to come, it can help you build it.
Exactly. Yeah, did you have a question?
Rachel with PG&E. I was wondering, what are your incentives or referral programs for employees that are bringing in talent from outside of the company? How are you encouraging people to do that?
Short, are you still here? Short Gearing.
Brings
He
them
ran
up
our
on
employee
stage.
referral program. I don't know, and it differs by country.
Well, we've got one that brings in around, these are small numbers again, but they're big for us. So about 3,000 of our seasonal casuals every year. We do a referral program, and we don't incentivize at all. So ours is really based on the culture, the pride of working with your organisation, the career opportunities that you're giving to your family and friends. And again, because we've got a reasonably low salary base, it's probably more important to our workforce that they are able to get opportunities for their family and friends, to get a foot in the door with a major employer, or to get their first bit of work experience as a youngster. We're really big into the youth support side of things, so we're very, very keen to offer that. We also look after a number of diversity groups through that program, so we get them referred in as well. But we don't spend anything on it at all.
Oh, that's interesting, the family and friends piece. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? I just haven't heard that as often. So.
Yeah. So we, I think, again, because of the culture, because of who we are, you've got this kind of job for life thing going on, and then you've got 3 generations who work on the line over Christmas, delivering Christmas presents to kids across Australia. So it's got this kind of lovely, good feeling about it. And what we find is that those people stick around for much more than Christmas, so they come back throughout the year for our other seasonal peaks. And of course, many of them are the children of our employees who are probably at university studying, so we start to capture that information. So whilst they might get their first paycheck from us, which will be, rubbish money, but for doing a couple of hours before Christmas, many of them end up entering our workforce elsewhere in the pipeline. So a number of them have come in as interns into our IT department, a number of them have come into our shared services environment, doing things like payroll and administration. So it is really a genuinely sort of first step opportunity for people. And I think because of that, the referring employee has a lot more to gain than $500, $1,000, $5,000,
Looks like we have time for maybe one more question, so perfect.
Hi, we have a lot of challenges as well with our internal movement, and the few employees who do actually make it all the way through to transfer one position to another, we often don't have any support for a compensation adjustment, even though it's completely supported by comp analysis and the difference from one position to another. Do you have any recommendations on how to sell to corporate and our leadership reasons and a justification as to why. I know it seems kind of common sense, but any sort of suggestions that you have would be awesome.
Well, in our case, you know, a lot of transfers were happening sort of behind the scenes, and I think that's when that can happen, right? But because now, if you want another position internally, most of the time you need to now go through our marketplace. It's like if you get that job, you get whatever that compensation is, and it might be in a very different part of our workforce, so there is a different compensation model. So as long as you go through, you get the offer, you know, you are offered the job. But so it was those sort of behind the scenes transfers that were happening before we had this program, where I think a lot of what you're struggling with happened, and I don't know how to help with that, unfortunately, other than doing what we do, which is forcing.
I think the transparency factor, you know, people get a fairer go when there's a lot more transparency and visibility about what's happening. I think also there's your question, you mentioned that very few people get through internally, and then when they do, they don't get the salary that the job deserves. And you're kind of caught on the horns of a dilemma there, because you're paying more money for external people to come in than you are for internal people. So if your internal people are cheaper because you're not going to give them the salary that the job deserves, then hire a lot more of them, because it's a lot cheaper for your labour line. If that's not the case, then, you know, watch out for equal opportunity discrimination claims would be my advice. One of the things I do with my executive quite often is frighten them a bit.
Good point.
Yeah,
That seems like a good note to end on.
Yeah, threaten the executive. There you go, there's a lesson.
No, in all sincerity, thank you very much. Great stories, great conversation, and thanks to all of you for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it.